Well, welcome to the Geospatial-Next Friday talk. My name's Matt Sheehan. I do this talk every Friday. I try to keep it tight and under 10 minutes. What we talk about is really the expanding world of geospatial, very much driven by technology advances which are part of the fourth industrial revolution. That means enormous tsunami of data that's being collected from satellites, from aerial, terrestrial level, indoors and underground. We've now got miniaturized sensors which are collecting data. A lot of that's real-time data as well. We've also got artificial intelligence and machine learning which allow us to process and analyze that data. The goal of Geospatial-Next is really to talk about what's possible now. We don't want to have hypothetical conversations about what's possible in a year or two or three. We really want to talk about what's possible today. What can we get done today? So I call this Geospatial Crossing the Chasm. It's both a technology conversation and a business conversation as well about how we broaden the use of geospatial technology. Thanks for joining the conversation. Well, happy Friday. We've got a fantastic topic today. Why has commercial GIS adoption been so limited? I will admit this question has been bothering me for probably 15 years. And in fact, this is one of the reasons why Geospatial-Next is such an important topic to me to actually answer this question. So let's dig in. So let's look at GIS today. Where does GIS reside today? Well, it almost exclusively resides in organizations which have a GIS or a mapping department. In large part, that's the public sector. So that's in the US, federal, state, and local government. It does reside in other places, but again, the prerequisite in most of the time to have GIS is have folks that understand it, which means that there's a department that employs GIS staff. So the problem that we're going to talk about today is how do we actually widen the use of GIS? And I suspect that the main problem we've struggled with for the last 40 plus years is that we've put the cart before the horse. What does that actually mean? To me, that means that GIS leads with a map. And I want you to imagine an MBA student or someone that's got an MBA, come out of business school. In their mind is not how they can use pie charts and graphs. But that's how we express what we do as GIS and how we think in terms of our role as GIS folks. It's all about the map, which is the output. So the sort of subheading or the subtitle of Geospatial-Next is really this notion of geospatial crossing the chasm. If you haven't read the book, you should read the book, Crossing the Chasm, fantastic book. But we're really talking about how we move GIS from niche technology, and I'll broaden it. Geospatial is really the umbrella term we should be using. How do we broaden that to wider use? And the commercial sector is really that wider use target. So let's just talk about the Geospatial Onion for a moment. I put this chart out in Twitter and LinkedIn the other day, but really I see four parts to the Geospatial Onion. We've got this core, which is our data, and that's really at the heart of what we do. We're experts at location-based data. And I've added geospatial there because we're no longer working in a two-dimensional space. We've now got three-dimensional data and real-time four-dimensional data coming in. So this Geospatial-Next notion is we have new data. But that new data is served up by just GIS and geospatial platforms. So we have ArcGIS, we've got open source technologies like QGIS and others, map server, etc., that can serve up that data, their platforms. But sitting around that, and actually what's going to be the real focus of this talk, is this notion of integration or geo-enablement, how we can actually link geospatial data to non-geospatial data. We'll talk more about that in a second. And the ultimate outcome of this are business solutions. Now, in the Geospatial-Next world, we talk a lot about artificial intelligence, machine learning. And I bring that as sort of a side slide into this diagram because we can apply this in many places. I mean, we can actually use artificial intelligence, machine learning on data to get some of those more difficult tasks processed at that raw data end of things, but we can also have it within a solution as well if we wanted to actually call out to an algorithm and pass data to it and have it process that and come back with an answer. So artificial intelligence and machine learning sort of work throughout this stack that we're showing here. So let's just peel back the onion. I've spoken about it before. If we build it, they will come is a mistake. It's a great film. It's a bad business idea. You have to start with a problem. And what we do when we found a problem is we build either solutions to solve that problem or information products to actually to be used to solve a particular problem. But when we've identified a problem, we really start at that data end of things. And again, there are now a multitude of more use cases that we can apply geospatial data to. We now have the data basically that we didn't before. When I started in GIS in the 90s, it was impossible to find data. Base maps and overlay data was really difficult to find. Now we've got that data and we've got it in a multi-dimensional way. And again, we've got artificial intelligence and machine learning to help us there. So that data forms the core of what we do. But really what sits in the middle between that product or that solution that we're building and the data that we're using to solve that is the platform, and most importantly the integration of platforms, which is what I've got on the chart here. So we really need to bring geospatial platforms and integrate them with business systems. And again, in the next diagram, I'll talk more about that. That integration piece is an actual critical part of how we broaden the use of geospatial and GIS. So what is integration? Really integration, and I mentioned it just a moment ago, is really linking geospatial data with non-geospatial data. So what does that mean in reality? Geospatial data has fundamentally two things. It's got geometry. So that is, it's where it sits on the earth, and it's got attributes. So those are some of those sort of summary pieces of information about that data. Now that data can be two-dimensional, it can be three-dimensional, and it can be four-dimensional. The same would apply. Geometry, place on earth, either it's static or moving, and a bunch of attributes attached to it. Now, that's useful on its own, and the GIS industry has been very successful in leveraging that data. But what we're really talking about the value of it is when we start linking it into non-geospatial data, and that's when we start talking about business systems. So what we're doing by linking those data sets, we're not bringing them together in one place, we're linking them together. That's a really important point to make, is we're really geo-enabling these business systems. So we're geo-enabling SAP, we're geo-enabling Salesforce, we're geo-enabling IBM Maximo. We've got these systems that we're actually attaching a location to, and the data that's there and the systems that are in place, the tools that are in place within those platforms are now geo-enabled. That offers an amazing number of possibilities. So why is integration so important? I'll provide 3 bullet points here. I think the most important thing is integrating geospatial into the tools business folks are already using. So we're really talking about a frictionless world there. We're not trying to force business folks who are in the commercial world to start adopting GIS and GIS tools. We're not putting GIS at the center of everything. What we're saying is we have GIS here, we have a business system here, and we're linking them together. So the processes that are part of that business system are now geo-enabled. And really what that allows us to do is to extend those business tools to provide greater and easier to obtain insights. So we're extending the tools that they've got in a frictionless way. And to me, that's how we're going to actually get much wider adoption of geospatial, by bringing it in to those systems and those tools that people are already using. And that's really called geo-enablement. So within this world of Geospatial-Next, I see that we've got the new data, we've got the new algorithms, we've got to change our business conversation, and integration is a very, very important part of that. So there's your Friday talk. Have a fabulous weekend, and we'll talk again next week. Thanks for listening to the Geospatial-Next Friday talk. My name's Matt Sheehan. You can reach me with questions, feedback on matt.sheehan@critigen.com. You can find conversations on GIS-Next in a number of different places. We've just released a website, geospatial-next.com. You can look us up on YouTube under the searching under Geospatial-Next. You can look me up, Matt Sheehan, on LinkedIn. I'm also active on Twitter and Instagram at GeoMattSheehan. We've just released a podcast called the Geospatial-Next podcast that is distributed across many podcast channels. And finally, if you'd like to subscribe, we've got a Geospatial-Next newsletter. Again, going back to the website will give you all this information, and we'll look forward to chatting again next week.